Good morning, everyone. I'd first of all apologize for the slightly late start. I think a lot of us who were here yesterday also realized that Delhi it's very difficult to get people out of their homes on a foggy morning early on the day, especially Monday yesterday and now. I'd like to welcome you all and also introduce our panel for the day. Given the fact that the two themes that we had for today, addressing issues of large databases and identity management and financial inclusion, a lot of the people who are on both panels have a variety of experience actually where the two merge. So we thought we would also merge the session, and I know a lot of people came to me yesterday saying it's very difficult to choose which session to attend. So I'd like to now introduce our panel. We have Mr. Ajay Sami, who is the Principal Secretary, Department of Health, Medical and Family Welfare, the Government of Andhra Pradesh. I'd like to welcome you on stage, sir. Mr. Gautam Bhardwaj, who is Co-Founder and Managing Director, Invest India Micro Pension Services. Mr. Rajesh Bansal, who is Additional Director General at the UIDAI. Mr. S.S. Mathur, who is GM IT at the Center for Railway Information Systems, Chris. And last but not the least, Mr. Abhinav Sinha, who is the CEO and co-founder of Echo India Financial Services. I'd like to also introduce my colleague, R. Giridhar, who is a group editor at 9.9 Media and will be moderating the session. Just to set a small context, I know that these are words that have been said a lot yesterday as well. India is building the world's largest biometric database. It is also seeking to institutionalize the electronic service delivery in the country. And I think one of the greatest challenges it is grappling with, how do you actually include people who have hitherto been marginalized? And I think in that sense, financial inclusion is a theme that we keep reading about and it keeps coming up every day. But often I think we don't understand the task at hand, and I'm sure that the panel today will be able to do justice to some of the questions that we've been asking ourselves. And I'd also like to introduce Dr. Rajendra Kumar, who is the Joint Secretary at the Department of Electronics and IT. He is also leading the electronic service delivery efforts of the department. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over the mic to Giri.
Thanks, Preeti. So, I'm more welcome to the panel. Thank you all for being here this morning. And so we are going to be addressing two topics which, as Preeti mentioned, are completely connected to each other. One is the issue of large databases and identity management, and closely connected to it, the issue of financial inclusion. To identify people and then make sure that they are financially included into the system. So I would like to invite Dr. Rajendra Kumar, the Joint Secretary Governance of the Department of Electronics. Please make some opening remarks.
Thank you and good morning everyone. I have a very small presentation on the large database and asset management. And again, I would also say today we're talking about and how related as we are. As you're all aware, in India we have made a huge effort in creating a very large database, and the world's largest database, in the form of the Aadhaar database. However, managing such huge data repositories, they pose their own unique challenges. For example, the first and foremost that concerns everyone's mind is with regard to security and privacy of personal data in such large databases. And another concern that is often raised with regard to such large databases containing personal data is how data is shared without compromising privacy, security, and integrity, and what kind of consent or what level of consent is obtained from the individual. The need of the hour is to create a robust regulatory and legal framework to address these challenges. In the context of identity management, we have seen broadly two approaches. This is true across many countries around the world. First is organization-centric, which allows organizations to consolidate or link distributed records of individuals. However, as you all might be aware, in this approach, there is lack of fine-grained dynamic consent by the individual. You give consent once, and then the entity or the organization or the government, it uses data in the back end with your presumed consent. There is another approach which recently in DIT we have tried to propagate, is to do this management in a user-centric fashion. The main difference in the approach is that in this case, the individual is allowed to have control over who uses his or her personal information and how it is used. This basically implies that the individual has fine-grained control over the use of his or her data, and he also provides permission for use of such data for individual transactions or services. In India, at present, there is no uniform system of electronic identity management or authentication. In the very recent past, in the last 1 year or so, DIT has worked on a new framework for addressing these issues for identity management. This framework we have named as e-Praman. This is already approved and notified by the department during October 2012. The basic goal behind this framework is to build trust in online transactions and encourage use of electronic mode for government service delivery. As you might be aware, at present, different departments, they have different mechanisms for doing user-level authentication, and in most cases, the user ends up providing some kind of documentation offline to authenticate his or her identity. This framework, it tries to eliminate paperwork in such authentication. It covers both web and mobile-based authentication, and it has 4 levels of authentication based on the sensitivity of the application, based on username, password, OTP, one-time password, digital certificate, or mobile based on PKI and biometric. And this framework, it incorporates the Aadhaar authentication service, which has been set up by the Audit Authority of India. And it also aims at authenticating government websites to ensure that users are not subjected to spurious or phishing attacks. The framework provides a set of guidelines for implementing e-authentication of users or government services and for authenticating government websites. This is a broad schematic of how this e-Praman middleware or the gateway works in conjunction with the other middleware that we have created. For example, the state service delivery gateways and the mobile service delivery gateway. There is a national level ID directory. This gateway is already created, and it is now being tested and piloted in one specific application in Andhra Pradesh. This is how this gateway also tries to incorporate a single sign-on mechanism by which a user can authenticate himself or herself once, and then he or she can navigate across the entire spectrum of government websites for obtaining different services. So the issues that we are trying to address are as follows. Probably we can have Q&A on the issues later on. First is addressing challenges of security, privacy, and sharing of personal data when we talk of large databases and identity management. Second is whether we need to have method-centric or user-centric ID management approaches, and whether consent, one-time consent is sufficient, or whether we need to allow individuals to give active permission for sharing personal data. However, then we have to deal with issues like national security and crime records, where the consent of the individual may or may not be required. In fact, in most cases, it's not required, or it's not needed, or it's not desirable. Then, how do we address the policy and regulatory challenges for addressing concerns such as security, privacy, and sharing? So I think these are the main issues that I had in mind for the ID management part of this thing. Regarding financial inclusion, this is closely linked to how we would eventually roll out financial services in our country. As you are all aware, government is trying to ensure that the benefits of different schemes are given to individuals directly, and recently the direct cash transfer scheme has been launched for a number of schemes across different departments and across different states. Now in that case again, the issues of authentication and identity would arise. The current mechanism is to use the Aadhaar platform actively for ensuring that. However, the question of individuals having bank accounts is probably that's a major challenge that we have to face. And also the delivery of these financial services, even though opening of bank accounts can be done in a decentralized fashion, but then how do people actively take part in these services? How they can withdraw cash, for example, how they can obtain credit, how they can actively transact using electronic mode. Mobile based approach is another example. We have recently launched a mobile service delivery gateway which aims at delivering a number of government services to the individuals over mobile devices, including financial services. For example, a person can operate a bank account using the mobile device. We also have launched a mobile payment gateway using which a person can pay for a set of certain services to merchants, to government departments. So these approaches would help us in ensuring that these services are rolled out across the country and people, even in rural areas, can avail of these services. Probably we can have some discussion on this as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for that very illuminating presentation on the e-Praman. I think it's going to be very useful for establishing identity in a very holistic fashion. Thanks so much. I'd now like to invite Mr. Rajesh Bansal. He's Additional Director General for Financial Inclusion with UIDAI. Mr. Rajesh Bansal.
Good morning, everyone, and I would like to thank for I government people to invite UIDAI for this session, and I'm happy to be here. I don't have a presentation, so I'll just speak out for 5 to 10 minutes, and if there are any questions at the end of the panel or whatever, as Sangeeta feels fit, we'll do that. And just a quick 1 minute update on what is Aadhaar doing today. We have already enrolled 300 million people, so 30 crore out of 120 crore people are already enrolled for Aadhaar. And this is now getting scaled up thanks to this thing that we have with the Home Ministry, that the National Population Register has been mandated to enroll 600 million people by next year, and the 600 million people are to be enrolled by the UIDAI by next year. The entire data, 1.2 billion or 120 crore people, comes to the UIDAI. We generate the Aadhaar number, the 12-digit Aadhaar number, as you are aware. So, as stated by Dr. Ravindra Kumar, obviously it ties up with the electronic service delivery and the e-Praman framework and the initiatives taken by DIT on authorization. So I'll focus my talk on Aadhaar and the financial inclusion bit. But as you would appreciate that if everyone has an Aadhaar number by next year, that means everybody in this country has an ID. And with maybe a billion people, billion wireless connections in the country, these two, an online verifiable identity, coupled with the mobile MSDG gateway that is being set up by the DIT, I'm sure you are in for the biggest revolution, in e-governance revolution anywhere in the world, where I can verify my entity anywhere using any other authentication factors as mentioned by Sir. So how does this help? This entire Aadhaar platform help in the delivery of financial service especially. I will not focus on other services because Sir is there who will maybe talk about health or broader principles of what could be used. Is Aadhaar acts as a KYC today. In no uncertain terms, it has been stated by RBI as well as SEBI, IRDA, that Aadhaar is a good enough KYC for opening a bank account, for getting an insurance policy, for getting a securities, mutual fund or whatever you want. So it ensures, and as Sir was saying, obviously one of the biggest challenges in this government initiative is ensuring everybody has an access to a bank account. Is that everybody who has an Aadhaar has as good as a right to a bank account. And we wish we could say that it is a right to a bank account. And internally, when we are discussing with a lot of ministries, even RBI, we are trying to push that unless there is a very good reason why a bank should refuse. So if somebody has an Aadhaar, he should be able to get a bank account. So that is one thing which ensures that everybody can have access to a bank account. And this current initiative, which I will talk about a little later. The second thing which ensures, looking at the electronification, as we call it, of the entire chain, that the UIDAI has started an initiative called eKYC, electronic version of the KYC document. In very simple terms, what it ensures is that I can walk into a bank and open a bank account basis my Aadhaar letter. This is what happens. Today it happens for a PAN card, a passport, or what other document which is valid for opening a bank account. Instead of my taking a physical paper and opening a bank account and a photocopy being kept at a bank, after that it is scanned, stored, and everything. UID offers where I walk into a bank, I remember my Aadhaar number, I give a consent to the bank to take my demographic data from the Aadhaar database. And that brings to the perfect point which Sir was saying. It has to be defined whether, in our system, it is defined that for each time you go to the bank and you want to give a KYC data, the first time you open a bank account, with Bank of India, you will have to do that. If you open with another account with ICICI Bank, you will have to do that again. So once the broader, security and privacy policy is framed, obviously we will abide by whatever is given. So what it ensures is I walk into a bank, give my Aadhaar number, give a consent to share my demographic data. My name, address and my photograph is then shared with that bank. That's it, no biometric, nothing. Only what is stored on my Aadhaar letter, what is given on my physical copy of my Aadhaar letter is electronically shared with that bank or that insurance company or that telecom provider or that PDS database or health, whoever it is. This is an example I was talking about a bank. Now, what it allows is that at that particular CSC or wherever you want to enroll for a PDS, the backend server, through other validation checks, obviously ID is one part, there are other parameters which the domain would want to know, can automatically enroll this person into a particular domain. In this case, let's say a bank account. So I walk in, give my consent, if it says it is okay with Aadhaar, it matches, the bank can automatically use that data and open a bank account instantly. Look at the power of that. What it ensures is ab initio from the time I enroll into banking, it is fully electronic. And after that, through the various authentication mechanisms developed by the MSDG gateway, our biometric authentication, our OTP authentication, this will mean that I can do transactions fully end-to-end electronic. And this is obviously not the forum to even re-emphasize, because all of you know electronic is the way to go if you want to ensure lower transaction cost, lower transaction opportunity cost for the people. So this is what it does. Aadhaar acts as a KYC. Aadhaar acts as a facility called eKYC, which could be leveraged. Now the next thing which the government is trying to leverage today, because Aadhaar is unique, it stays with me for my life. The government says that Aadhaar can be used as a financial address. What does it mean in simple terms? It means that today if the government has to transfer, I am focusing on the government as of now, the government wants to transfer money to me. What does the government ask me today? UIDAI transferred my salary. What did UIDAI ask me? He said, please give me your bank, your IFSC code. I'm sure I don't know how many of us in this room remember and know our IFSC code. I'm sure all of us will have to do some Google or take out a checkbook to find out your IFSC code. So your IFSC code and then your 15 or 16 digit account number, which I think a lot of us are storing on a mobile now. Earlier it was much easier, it was 23044. Now it is 007010230033. That's why I say account number, right? So this is what the the UIDAI asked me. On that basis, the UIDAI transfers my salary every month and whatever other payments you do. Now, if this was to be done for, let's say, 40 crore people, because That's the estimate. 30 to 40 crore people get some kind of money from the government. Could be pension, could be, health related payments, could be scholarships. Andhra Pradesh itself has 4,000 crores of scholarships for children, 27 lakh. They have huge NREGA payments, social security pensions, 10 crore LPG payments that the government is looking at. If the government looks at in some way starting some kind of food subsidy or a top up, like in Delhi they have started an amnesty scheme. So it could translate into nothing less than a crore payouts every day and 30 to 40 crore people or 300 to 400 million people being paid every year. Which means across these hundreds of departments at state and center, you will have to collect the IFSC code and the 15 or 16 digit account number to be able to send money to me. Take a simple example of a family in a rural area. Family of 5. I am a NREGA worker. My wife is going to get some Janani Suraksha Yojana payment or IGMSY payment. My kid happens to be bright. The boy gets a scholarship, post-metric scholarship or whatever, pre-metric scholarship for SC students. The girl is bright, she gets some Dhan Lakshmi or one of those Ladli scheme, this thing. And my mother is a widow who gets a widow pension. So what 5 of us have to do? 5 of us have to go open 5 bank accounts. Fair enough. Anyway, you have to open a bank account with or without Aadhaar. After that, all 5 of us have to go and register my, give my IFSC code, my 15-digit account number to each of the departments. And if me, as a NREGA worker, is getting something else from the government, I have to go and give it to that department as well. So for us as a family, we have to do this entire rigmarole of giving out all my details so many times to each government department, which also ensure that I will never change my bank account even if the service is pathetic. And we are aware, I'm sure your friends, Abhinav, especially sitting here handling financial inclusion, are aware that even if I don't get a good service, but I'm stuck with that bank because if I change my bank, my NREGA payment will stop coming. Right? So what is Aadhaar as a financial address? Coming to this thing, what does it mean? It basically means, because Aadhaar is unique, the payment architecture that has been built ensures that government can send money just to my Aadhaar number. So I have to just go and give my Aadhaar number to the government, go and give my Aadhaar number to the bank, which anyway, if I am opening my account basis Aadhaar, it is done. So here is the government who has my Aadhaar number in their database. This is the bank which has Aadhaar number in the database. And in the middle, there is a connector, what we call as an Aadhaar payment bridge. What does this payment bridge do? It has a mapping of which Aadhaar number has an account with which bank. Just which bank, a 6-digit code. So I have gone, opened an account with Bank of India, given my Aadhaar. I am a NREGA beneficiary, I have gone and given my Aadhaar. This bank has uploaded the fact that this Aadhaar number as good as belongs to Bank of India. Am I clear on that, sir? So this is uploaded. So when the government department sends a file containing Aadhaar number and amount, basically these are the 2 primary fields on the basis of which money is sent out. It looks up that this Aadhaar number means this bank. It lands in Bank of India server. Bank of India server knows this Aadhaar number means this account, and the money is credited seamlessly. What it also gives me portability is that if I am fed up of Bank of India for whatever reason I want to shift to ICICI Bank, I can just go and open my account with ICICI. The pointer in that mapper just changes from Bank of India to ICICI without the government bothering to update their database. Because once there is Aadhaar, it's for life. So that is why Aadhaar has a uniqueness to ensure that it acts as a financial address, and that is what the government has decided to implement from 1st January across 20 districts, across some schemes, and planning to scale it up from April and then further scale it up during the year, possibly looking at most of the schemes, including LPG, which will impact UN. The third thing which Aadhaar enables, obviously, is the central database through which you can authenticate and do a financial transaction. So the government is looking at, and the banks are already deploying, a micro ATM device, which is nothing but a typical POS device. Could be on a mobile, could be a POS, could be a kiosk, for which standards are already defined by Indian Bank Association after approval from RBI. That micro ATM is the standard through which is online interoperable, which means that I can go and transact, withdraw my money or Narega wages or whatever scholarship using central authentication of Aadhaar. This also ensures, as far as the the marginalized section is concerned, because of biometrics, I mean, need not emphasize again that it is me who withdraws the money rather than somebody else. And as sir said, with the mobile payment gateways being available, I may not even withdraw my money. If there are payments to be made to the government department through the mobile payment gateway, I can actually start making payments directly. So this is what the basic proposition of Aadhaar as far as financial inclusion and payments is concerned, and this is what the government is trying to leverage. So with this words, thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bansal. I would now like to invite Mr. Ajay Sani, Principal Secretary, Department of Health, Medical and Family Welfare, Government of Andhra Pradesh. Mr. Sani has been associated for a long time with a lot of IT projects and he's very passionate about it. Please welcome.
So very good morning to all of you. It's a wonderful panel to be with Dr. Rajendra Kumar and Mrs. Mathur and from UID, Rajesh and Abhinav. I think the issues of large databases and identity management have taken they are of extreme importance right now when Aadhaar is making strides with almost 30 crore Aadhaar enrollments having happened, and I think there is a huge momentum currently with the NPR also coming in strongly. By end of next year, I think we should have more or less 85–90% of the citizens and residents enrolled in Aadhaar, if not more. We have I am now a Principal Secretary Health. Before this I was President and CEO of National E-Governance Division. So I have gone from position where we were only planning and sort of at the national level to a position where responsible for health services to a large population of about 8.5 crore people in Andhra Pradesh. So day in and day out, a large number of PHCs, primary healthcare centers function, the area community health centers, area hospitals, district hospitals, tertiary hospitals, etc. Every day, almost an army of ANMs, the multipurpose health assistant, female, or the auxiliary nurse and midwife. We have about 20,000 of them. We have about 75,000 ASHA workers. Every day they crisscross the geography of Andhra Pradesh. They are expected to provide services to pregnant women and immunization services to infants. So suddenly, from planning kind of a perspective, from a national perspective, my entire energy is now going into how to make services happen, how to make the data flow in a smooth manner, in a manner that can facilitate flow of services, and without compromising privacy and with the many factors which sort of still have to be brought in. So I would especially like to mention one, Aadhaar is the big kid on the block. The second one, which we are all sort of fully aware, is mobile. Nothing else has reached the rural area with a sort of huge impact as much as mobile phone. So in Andhra Pradesh today we have in NREGA, the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, anywhere a group starts working of 10 people, 8 people, 12 people, the leader has a mobile and they send data of who all, specifically which persons have landed up for work, and the work entrusted to them is given an ID, and each of them have an ID. That helps them monitor what is going on and they are able to make payments. Similarly, there's almost a large bank which is running almost entirely on mobile in Andhra Pradesh with the self-help groups and looking at the savings of the self-help groups. So these huge operations are there. The ANMs and the Anganwadi workers and the ASHA workers are all, most of them, many of them have mobiles, some of them provided by the government, not yet effectively used. But mobile is the second major transforming entity which is happening today. The third one which has come in, with the mobile there is also this direct benefit transfer scheme which has been announced and getting rolled out. So certainly the financial side has become as important. So in the month of December we had a series of sort of hastily called meetings at all levels. The banks and departments and state governments were all sort of trying to put their join forces to ensure that the direct cash transfer, or later it was renamed as direct benefit transfer scheme, it was to start on the 1st of January. Now again, while many of these things are there, Aadhaar is there, almost in large segments of population are covered by Aadhaar, but we suddenly found a big gap between people who have enrolled for Aadhaar and people who have received their Aadhaar number, and having received their Aadhaar number, are they actually having that document, have they kept it safe, are they aware of their Aadhaar number, do they have a bank account, do they know the bank account number, and does the bank account know that they have Aadhaar, and sort of matching these two itself became such a big problem that the best district in Andhra Pradesh, where we were hoping to launch it very confidently on the 1st of January, on 6th of January we could do some kind of a launch. The other districts are still struggling. So while these three major things are already there, a massive banking system, Aadhaar and mobile, there are still a number of issues in actually making use of these large databases in a robust manner. Apart from these, the issues of privacy actually take center stage. If we are already in many countries where they have attempted biometric based system, actually the national governments have had to beat a retreat. In many places, issues of privacy have been so strongly raised and felt that it's as if people don't trust government with all of their data, and if the privacy regime doesn't come in strongly, then arrival of and operationalization of large databases actually starts becoming an issue of concern. So how do you tackle, then we have, the moment you have data pertaining to maybe some government benefits, that is one part where you can say that in any case you are going to be known to the department and the department has to know you to pass the benefits on to you. But if you want to use these databases also for health, it would be extremely beneficial to have an electronic health record or an electronic medical record which is available to your doctor at the point of treatment. But how do you then protect privacy? How do you ring fence the data, and how do you give individuals some control over what is happening to their data? So when you look at these issues, I think another fourth entity which is also there in India and which hasn't made that big strides might come in handy. That is the public key infrastructure, PKI, or digital signatures. So digital signatures bring with them, as part of the concept itself, what is called the pain factor. Privacy, where you can actually encrypt information, you can protect your information, you can ensure privacy in many ways. Authentication, where it's legally authenticated transaction or flow of data. Authentication, of course, will come in strongly also through Aadhaar, e-Praman, and Aadhaar and e-Praman primarily. But when so the third factor is integrity of data. What is it that I have said, and is that passing exactly in the same manner to the recipient, or is there any tinkering on the way? Can anyone tap, especially when you use mobile? The mobile communication can actually be, there are a number of devices which are floating around which can actually break in and intercept the data. So are we certain that the data which is flowing from an individual or any other office to another entity, is it being received exactly in the same way? If not, what needs to be done? So integrity of the data, and then non-repudiation. If you have performed a certain transaction, how do we also ensure that you cannot later on turn back and say, no, I never performed this transaction. It was not me, it was someone else. So these four factors come in along with PKI or digital signatures. A number of countries have experimented with what is called mobile ID, which actually combines these factors. A national ID system, a banking system, a mobile system, and PKI. So a digital signature that is issued, a certificate that is issued by one of the certifying authorities, is expected to be carried on a hardware device. And the SIM card on the mobile actually is acceptable in the form of a crypto SIM as that kind of a hardware device. So I have seen this in operation in Estonia. I think Rajendra has also seen it in operation there, where a person carries his national ID and along with a digital signature, a couple of digital signatures on the SIM card on his mobile itself. And from that they are able to enter any of the government databases. They are able to enter their record or their login can be performed through that. And individually, every transaction that requires permission from the person concerned can actually be given on the spot using the mobile. So this is one area which I would sort of support at least experimenting with, because if privacy is to be taken care of, and if individual transactions are of banking, of financial nature, and of health and other records which are intensely private, are to be performed with confidence by a large number of people using Aadhaar, using mobile, then I think a third factor also needs to come in, and that is that of PKI or digital signatures. UK has taken a different route. Last year, towards the end of last year, I think there are announcements. UK is one of the countries that had to sort of give up biometrics-based large national ID system. Recently, they again have come in. I'm not sure whether that has become operational, but I have seen a number of announcements to that effect, where a mobile can be used as the entry point into gov.uk, where all the government services are sort of brought in. It's a window to all the government services. They are making use of mobile along with a number of other identity provider companies, identity service provider companies. So you can now use your Facebook account or your account with British Telecom or with a number of other entities. This is the concept. I'm not sure whether it is now operational, where you have the choice of using your login with Facebook, with Google, or with a number of other major entities as your login for the purpose of government services. So this one doesn't use biometrics, but each of these companies actually uses, most of you are users of Facebook, you know that if you log in from a different place or a different machine, Facebook has its own ways, and so have other major entities like this. They have their own way of asking you a few questions and making sure that you are the person who is actually accessing the account and not someone else. So those come inbuilt with the company that you choose to use for this purpose. So on one side we have complete privacy with encryption, which is possible through combining Aadhaar mobile and banking with digital certificates. On the other side, you have a little more open system which has its own different flavor. So perhaps for India, we need a spectrum of choices. It's so large a country that what we have seen working in Estonia is one by 900th of India, about 13.5 lakh people. So what works perfectly well for all those 13.5 lakh people, the moment you start imagining that for 1.2 billion people, you have a bit of a problem. So maybe we have to develop a spectrum of choices, but privacy is a huge factor which has to step in, and it has to step in now. The privacy law, as well as systems which will help maintain privacy. Only then we will be able to move forward with the kind of confidence that one needs. Even now, all of us have mobiles. All of us are aware that banking transactions are possible. All of us are aware that payments even to merchants are possible. How many of us use that? I think our concerns about privacy and about misuse are so strong that we shy away from even experimenting with that kind of a system. So some of these concerns I think we have to take care of, and it's important to take care of them with programs that have a national footprint. It's not just authentication or digital certificates which come in from Airtel or from a particular small company. It will greatly help if we have a national umbrella which brings this kind of concepts in, articulates the range of choices that will be available to citizens and to service providers both in the public space and private space, so that then we can move forward more confidently. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sani. I think that was a very illuminating lecture on the issue of privacy and how we can achieve privacy through a variety of channels and technologies. I'd now like to invite Mr. Gautam Bharadwaj, who's co-founder and managing director of Invest India Micro Pension Services, to speak on the topic of financial inclusion.
Morning, morning colleagues, morning friends. I was very, very encouraged by the talk that I heard from both Rajesh Bansal and Mr. Sani. To a certain extent, I think Mr. Sani has clearly echoed some of the things that I was going to raise. So the way we think about it, I work in a very narrow area, by the way. I work in a firm which is specifically focused, it's a social enterprise. It is focused on assisting low-income workers to accumulate micro savings for their old age. That's all we do. We don't do anything else. But so we started this in 2006. Before that, we were doing some work in pension reforms at a policy level. In 2006, when we started, we didn't really have, other than a mission statement saying we must help low-income excluded workers to save for old age. Other than that, we didn't really know exactly how we're going to do it. It's only now when we stand in 2013, some of the picture is seeming clearer, and I think we're beginning to see how the dots get connected, but that's only with the benefit of hindsight. But when we were standing along the way, one of the things that have occurred to me, and I think as I'm growing older, I'm getting more skeptical, but financial inclusion, depending on where and who I was sitting with at which point in time, seemed to be a very different story every time. If I was sitting in Ministry of Finance, it meant something different. Ministry of Social Justice was slightly different. In RBI, it was different. In PFRD. So I felt it's like the six blind men of Calcutta and with one elephant, and everybody has a certain view of what they see or what they feel financial inclusion really means. Now when I look at 2013, maybe there is some more light in the room and we are probably able to see more clearly that we are dealing with an elephant. It's not a rope, it's not just bank accounts, it's not about just payments, it's not just about ID. All of these seem to be extremely important pieces of a solution which will assist in financial inclusion. So what I'll do is I have a problem with brevity. So I will request the moderator to please nudge me when I'm overstepping my time. So this is the pension coverage landscape as it currently looks. Okay. So this is a chart with 4 colors. The orange is really the population of people who currently are excluded from formal pension programs, but have some ability to accumulate a small amount of money out of their incomes for their old age. The white are people who are unpaid family members, do not derive any cash incomes and therefore can't save for old age, and also includes people who are already above 60 and are still in the workforce. Both of these categories really, I think accumulating savings for old age doesn't work for the people who are in the white band. Then I have a green band, which is really the lifetime poor. These are people who could be interested, should be interested to save for their old age, are deeply concerned about what they're going to do once they're unable to work, but they just don't have enough savings. In fact, most of them will be dissavers and will never be able to accumulate enough savings for an above poverty annuity. And then I have a blue in this chart, which is really the civil servants, I think most of the panel here, and people who are in the armed forces or in government service more generally or in larger firms. These are people who are covered by a pension program, and they will receive a pension when they're old. So out of these four colors, blue is the only population which has some hope of not outliving the savings. For the rest, whether you're in the orange or the saffron or the white or the green, this seems to be the general retirement portfolio. So when I go and talk to a rickshawala, or I go and talk to a maid in a household, or I talk to somebody who's a vegetable vendor, the retirement portfolio looks something like this. And you say, okay, what are you thinking about your old age? Well, children, I think they will take care of me. There's also God, and there is Kismat, and perhaps the government. So this seems to be the kind of retirement portfolio. Quite naturally, this is the kind of retirement outcomes most of these people are already deriving, or this is the kind of retirement outcome that most of the people in the three large bands in the chart we saw will have. So this is the kind of retirement. So you'll see most of these people will be working in their 60s, will continue to work in their 70s, will continue to work in their 80s, and will in effect continue to work till they die, because the moment they stop working, they will not be able to survive. So the alternative, this is the alternative that we thought. And this is where I think, as I'm growing older, maybe I'm becoming less skeptical, and I'm beginning to see the light in that room, is imagine a young worker today, somebody who's age 25, he or she opens a pension account and starts saving a small part of her income month after month over many years, over multiple decades. Even if she changes her job or location, she will have a secure, convenient and affordable way by which to put 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 50 rupees, 500 rupees, whatever is the amount that she can save. She should be able to save this whenever she has the money, and this money should directly, without the risk of fraud or theft, reach a particular regulated financial institution. Her micro savings that she puts in month after month should continue to be invested in her own name with in a regulated, customized financial product, which will give her hopefully inflation-adjusted returns. And these savings will grow over a period of time. Compounding is a lovely thing. So even if you're saving 100 rupees a month at the age of 20, the chances of you being non-poor are very, very bright. Okay? So this money will grow over a period of time. When this person is old, she should be able to stop working when she thinks that she's unable to work anymore, or she thinks that she's accumulated enough savings, and thereafter automatically money should start flowing into her own account, and she should be able to start deriving a monthly pension for the rest of her life. During this entire process, if she has any questions, concerns, complaints, etc., she should have a very simple and easy way of getting past those problems, and this should be very effective. So I think the difference in this story really is one missing piece. So if I see 5 people in that room with that elephant, I think one of the things which we are seemingly ignoring is that we are dealing with an elephant. We have an elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room really is the everyday Indian. So how do we make sure, whether we're talking about banking outreach, so the way I look at it is we seem to be spending an incredible amount of effort, as we correctly should, in solving a large part of the problems, but I still see the glass as half full. So I still see that where I have large banking outreach, I have millions of BCs, I have good political will, I have policy environment which is conducive, I have a good strong payments backbone, I have a UIDAI which gives me IDs, KYC, etc. I have a plethora of financial services which are available. I see a large latent demand, and I see telecom, mobile, technology, all of this is really sitting on one side of the road. This is, if it comes together, firstly, one, it all has to come together very, very nicely. Second, on the other side of the road are these 300-400 million Indians who currently want to save for their old age or want financial services, and for all this to work, somebody has to cross that road. So either you have to have these 400 million people who should look at this entire supply side and say, okay, this is what I want, and I should be able to walk across the road and get it, or somebody from the supply side has to cross the road and walk over to the other side and do it. So I won't bore you with this. I have this tendency of putting too many words in my slides. But broadly, what was happening in this story, if you saw, was that one, for a person to, at age 20 or 22, to decide that she needs to save for her old age, needs an incredible amount of education and knowledge about the importance of old age. So somebody has to walk across the road and start talking to her and saying, because if I'm a vegetable vendor and you give me a bank account with a UID, nothing changes in my life. Maybe if I'm getting some subsidy or if I'm getting some cash transfers, very nice. But beyond that, most of the risks that I'm facing, for which products are easily available, nothing changes. I still continue to get incomes in cash, I still continue to spend in cash. So therefore, my ability or interest in opening or using that bank account really is very low. So if you want to put reality the way we think about it is, one, let's arm the person with financial knowledge. Let's arm her with clear awareness about features and services of the products that she's buying. This is going to be incredibly important. The second, I think, which is again a critical piece, so once I've joined the scheme, one of the things that we see is that it's very difficult to measure knowledge. So one of the simple things that we do in micropensions, we've got about 5 lakh people, so Rajesh Bansal was talking numbers which I was keeling over at. We just have 5 lakh low-income people in some districts who are currently saving with us. But one of the key things is, how do we verify that Parvati Ben, who's enrolled for a pension program, clearly understands the program, clearly understands her rights, clearly understands what to do, who to speak to if there is a problem, clearly understands who's managing the money, etc., etc. So for that, sure, I'm through actually. I just have 2-3 slides. So how do we make sure that this is actually done nicely? So one is to be able to, so we just simply do concurrent audits. We call up Parvati. You've been enrolled, what have you understood about the scheme, and so on and so forth. Thereafter, all we did was we started working with bank accounts. And thereafter what we've done is we've created a prepaid card-based solution. I'm very pleased to know that UID is already working on this. So when somebody saves her old age, she just gets a prepaid card. This is a simple prepaid card. It works on again on a mobile platform. And this is the POS device that we've developed with Visa. So this attaches itself to a phone, and the person walks up to a payment outlet, says, please put 200 rupees in my account. Once she knows that she's saving for old age, she puts 200 rupees into her account. I just swipe the card on this, and instantly the money is digitized. So I've got tribals in Nilgiris, for instance, who are saving for old age. When they put 200 rupees in their account, and the banks are 90 kilometers away in Ooty, then her money is instantly transferred into her card and instantly into a bank account. By end of day, this money is sitting in a or a state bank or something else, in her own name. So all I'm saying is, if we can start thinking a little more clearly about how we can achieve achieve and crack the demand side of the problem. I have a feeling we'll get. So I had some story about this goat, but I'll avoid this in the context of brevity. But what I feel is that I think if we can just put these two pieces together, this incredibly interesting supply piece together with what we are seeing on the demand side, where we're seeing 400 million people really hungry for financial services and solutions. I think this is the kind of an outcome that we can get. And this is certainly the kind of an outcome that we should target. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. practicalities of actually getting all this done, and you've shown one way in which this is being made possible. So thank you so much. I would now like to invite Mr. Abhinav Sinha, CEO and founder of Eco India Financial Services, to talk also about financial inclusion.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Abhinav, and I thank iGovernment for giving ECHO and myself the opportunity to share what we do. It's tough to actually talk after what Gautam's spoken about. And however, let me introduce ECHO for a minute and then talk about our experience in some of the infrastructure that a lot of the eminent panelists here are putting in a lot of effort to build, and how are we using it. We started ECHO in September of 2007. It's a 5-year-old company, and we are into the space of business correspondence. We work with State Bank of India, we work with ICICI Bank and Yes Bank, and so I'm sure most of the people here would know, but for others who don't, business correspondent is nothing else but an outsourced bank branch, which can do all financial services outside the premises of a bank branch. And so that was what we understood 5 years back, and we started our journey in trying to create low-cost financial services infrastructure where a lot of underbanked or unbanked people could access financial services and get themselves a lot of financial services, which Gautam mentioned about crossing the road and getting to the 300-400 million people, where they could access products. Just to give you a sense of where the infrastructure in India is, and that's how we compare. In developed countries, we have a bank branch with services close to about 1,000 people. For every bank branch in India, there are close to about 20,000 people who get service. So if you multiply the number of branches, which is about 80,000 into 20,000, it's close to about 1.6 billion people, and that's how crowded our bank branches are. And if so, the need in India just to solve the problem of financial services is to make bank branches 10 times. So it's a question of taking 80,000 bank branches to 8 lakh bank branches. The cost of setting that up would be anyone's guess, could be anything between 8,000 crores to 80,000 crores. And the problem, and it's a great infrastructure that RBI promoted, which was the business correspondent, which was to take 80,000 bank branches and take them to 8 lakh business correspondent outlets where people could get banking services. And the cost of setting up a business correspondent outlet, just the cost of setting up an outlet that ECHO does, one-time cost is not more than 5,000 to 8,000 rupees. So if you set up a lot many, it would not cost you more than let's say 100 crores or 150 crores. So the difference is about, do I want to, or does the country want to invest in 8 to 80,000 crores, or does it want to invest 100 crores to 150 crores and set up these outlets, where people who are underbanked or unbanked can actually go and get themselves basic financial services. Now, getting to the point of where ECHO is, we started ECHO in 2007 in Delhi. At this point in time, we are close to about 2,000 outlets and have serviced in excess of 20 lakh customers with various savings and remittance products in Delhi primarily, and in other states as well. So at this point in time, ECHO is present in about 11 states and about 19 cities and towns. Now that's the disparity of the present infrastructure versus the infrastructure that practitioners like me, ECHO, my company, and others are trying to build. It's absolutely an elephant in the room, and it's no trivial task to solve this problem. Talking further about the infrastructure that's currently been built, and Rajesh talked about 30 crore people who have got enrolled in UID. It's a great infrastructure. It's a great initiative again by the government. And let me take you through how a practitioner like ECHO or any business correspondent would use an infrastructure like UID. Imagine, for example, in case of ECHO, imagine a pharmacy outlet in Uttam Nagar. And you could actually, so the service which is available is a customer who does not have a bank account would actually walk into this pharmacy outlet, give his ID proof and address proof, and walk out with a State Bank of India bank account. Now the challenge is, which is rightly mentioned by Rajesh, is that how does that rickshawala who walks into a pharmacy outlet, bring in an ID proof and an address proof which is not there. And then let's say if it's there, how does that piece of document gets digitized and gets to State Bank of India and a bank account gets opened? So that's a reasonable amount of task to be done to cover 300, 400 people for banking services. And that's where UID helps a lot. So let's say the rickshawala walks in and says, this is my 12-digit UID number. And with the blink of an eye, if an organization like Echo could give a bank account, it would be brilliant for that individual. And so while business correspondents are there, while UID is there, and there is infrastructure, getting again to Gautam's point, the integrations aren't very smooth at this point in time. And I guess each one of us is working extremely hard because we are passionate about the space that we are in, and we are excited about the fact that there are 1 billion mobile phones and this UID infrastructure which could just change the state in which India works or financial inclusion of financial services are dealt with. So there's a lot of effort in putting that together. But wanting to make the point that UID is a great infrastructure, it could help in online real-time KYC integrations and getting yourself a bank account, which probably you and I don't experience at this point in time. That's one part. The next part that that Echo leverages is that, like I mentioned, we in Echo, in order to build this low-cost financial services infrastructure, there were two things that Echo wanted to leverage a lot in India, especially. And there are two things in my mind are carry the adjective of being ubiquitous in India. One is retail outlets. It's everywhere. It's in Delhi, it's in Bombay, it's in cities, it's in towns, it's everywhere. The other one was mobile phones. And so in order to deliver the financial services, Echo chooses a retail outlet as one part of the equation, and the other is that we leverage the fact there's a mobile phone in the hands of almost every individual that one needs and wants to service. The other challenge when we got to mobile phones was that there's a plethora of mobile devices and there are 13 mobile network operators. How does one get through the maze around this? And it was an interesting challenge to solve. Where a customer, a rickshawala walking into a retail outlet, the retailer does not ask him, are you a Vodafone customer, are you an Idea customer, do you have an LG, do you have a Nokia, or what? And so Echo then we've come out with a low-cost authentication device, a low-cost authentication paper-based device, which actually helps in doing financial services transactions across all mobile phone devices, across all network providers. And we don't ask these questions whether you're a Vodafone or an Idea, whether you're an LG or a Samsung. And we just process financial services transactions. And it's done over a mechanism called USSD. And each one of us would be familiar with that because if you do a *123#, it gives you your balance. That syntax of *123#, that technology is called USSD. It's compatible with all phones and all mobile network operators. So with the combination of retail outlets and mobile phone is what Echo thought that we could build this low-cost infrastructure and take banking to the unbanked or underbanked people. Now, like I mentioned, there was a challenge around KYC and UID smooth integration. There are challenges around mobile phone as well. One of the things that I would like to highlight here is that there is this overlap between organizations, government, non-government, private, who are infrastructure providers, and those departments or infrastructures can also become service providers. And let me give you an example. For example, UID creating a payment infrastructure. It's great. The thought's great. However, it needs, from a practitioner standpoint, we also desire some of these infrastructure to be open to allow practitioners like us to innovate outside the infrastructure that they provide. Let me give you another example. For example, Airtel and Airtel Money. Airtel or any mobile network operator will have its great mobile infrastructure which practitioners like us would want to leverage. And Airtel Money, which is a competition for Echo. It's great to have competition. It's a question about how these private public infrastructures are also able to distinguish their role as infrastructure providers and service providers. It's very, very, very important for us to succeed in this mission to provide financial services for a large number of Indians. Lastly, the other challenge that I would also want to point out is that we work with banks. So like I mentioned, we work with State Bank of India, we work with ICICI Bank, we work with Yes Bank. And interestingly, what has happened is that all regulations that have come, that have come across in this space from 2007 to 2009 have all been progressive in nature, which is great. However, there's been a lot of slow progress in ensuring that the banks, us as practitioners, the technology actually catches up with the kind of regulations that have come in. And one thing that I would want to point out is that when actually Echo started to build this business correspondent low-cost infrastructure, we went ahead and acquired customers and got themselves to have a bank account with State Bank of India. And the technology infrastructure at that point in time, which was extended by the bank, was in a manner that the customers that Echo acquired for the bank could not transact with 20 million or 200 million customers of State Bank of India, which already existed in the past. So it was an island of customers who could not transact with a lot of the existing banking infrastructure. And over the next 3 years, it took banks to actually integrate and make sure that the customers that Echo or any other business correspondent acquires is able to transact with other set of bank customers. So for example, if my driver went ahead and got himself a bank account from Echo, and if I wanted to pay him salary, I couldn't do it. I still had to actually take out cash from an ATM and give him cash. It was still not there. And so it's one step at a time. So at least that bit of a challenge is a little bit solved for some of the banks. So the point that I would want to make on the bank side is that it's extremely important that the manner in which the business correspondent or any channel, any additional banking channel of the bank is extended to the people, it needs to be built as if it's their own channel. It's got to be built in an interoperable manner. It's got to be built in a manner where, let's say, if there is a State Bank of India or an ICICI outlet where the rickshawalas or my maid or my driver could go, why can't I go? I should have access to that outlet as well. And so should they have the access to the channel that we have. And that's all. It's therefore, so the point that I would want to highlight here is therefore very important for us to create an infrastructure which is holistic, which is well integrated. Otherwise, it will get a lot more difficult to solve the challenges of creating a very holistic payment infrastructure. So the last thing that I would want to highlight here is that for anybody who wishes to understand financial services and the business correspondence space easy, the manner in which we kind of see is that imagine a bank creating bank branches. There is an orbit of ATMs around it, which helps to take customers and transactions out of the bank branches to an ATM. Now imagine another orbit which is further away from the ATMs, of human ATMs, which we call business correspondent, which can reach a lot more people. And I guess this is a great infrastructure, a great policy which the government has come out. And there are a lot of things that each one of us is trying to do. It's important for all of us to actually be able to put this together. Otherwise, it's going to be a big challenge to solve in years to come. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Abhinav, for explaining how the business correspondents work and all the challenges that you're facing. While the infrastructure is there, getting it all to work together, I think still needs some solutions to be implemented on the ground. So thank you so much. I'd like to invite our final speaker for this session today, Mr. S.S. Mathur, who is General Manager IT for the Center for Railway Information Systems. So most of you use his systems, and so he's going to talk about some issues about large data issues in IT management.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here in front of this audience and this panel. I was going to show a presentation, but I think it's a bit late and it will take too much time for us to go through a presentation of slides. What I'll do is I'll just go through some of the points that came to me while we were discussing today's issues. And mainly we are talking about big data in terms of identity. We are looking at where the question of identity of a citizen fits into the services that are offered by the government, so that the services are targeted towards the citizen. I represent only one of the services that the government gives, and that is transportation. Transportation of passengers and transportation of freight. And both of these the government provides to its citizens as a service which has to be offered in an unbiased manner. We second, the railways are partly commercial also in our approach. We are not dependent on government subsidies, for example. There are no direct subsidies. So we have to maintain a balance between commercial decisions as well as ensuring that there is inclusive service delivery across the country and to all its citizens. One of the issues that comes up today, because today, as you know, passenger travel, if you try to get a ticket in a train, you have to, especially if you are traveling in the peak season, you have to reserve well in advance. Perhaps you have to reserve 4 months in advance or 3 months in advance, and still you find that there are no seats available. So there is a shortage of accommodation that we reserve, and that is where there is a lot of fraud possible. So there are instances of agents fraudulently buying tickets and then getting other people to travel against those tickets. So that is the immediate direct requirement of identity. So what we ensure right now is that we ask all the travelers to carry some sort of identity, a document that proves the identity, and there are a few 4 or 5 documents that are specified for this. But this is one area in which the Aadhaar identity can be used, and we are actively looking at that. Can we directly ask you to give your Aadhaar number, and then on the train, can we authenticate that Aadhaar number to make sure that the right person is traveling? Because today we carry about 16 lakh passengers every day who go by reserved accommodation. On the other hand, there is a whole world of people traveling unreserved. That is about more than 1 crore tickets a day are sold for unreserved travel. That is, you just get on the train and you travel. So there is a huge population there. That is underserved compared to the people going by reserved accommodation, because that is relatively underserved. Because there is no real way to find out how many people are going, what is the capacity that is being used. You can just get onto a train and travel. How much overcrowding is there? So that 90%, to serve that 90%, we have to make the ticketing easier for them. The process of buying a ticket. How do you buy a ticket? You have to stand in the queue. 1 crore people standing in the queue is quite a few numbers, and requires a lot of large number of counters and overcrowding and problematic situations. So can we serve them by giving them the option of buying their ticket over a mobile phone? That is another of the areas that we are looking at very seriously. Can we give them a ticket on the mobile phone, but not over a smartphone? Because that is easier to do compared to people. You can make a system by which on my smartphone, on my Apple iPhone, I can buy a ticket. You can just have an app. But the people that we want to serve don't carry iPhones. We want to serve people with normal phones, with a Nokia entry-level phone. So that is where the challenge lies. So we are looking very seriously at USSD based, USSD based applications can work, and or SMS based applications. Can you, on the run while you are running to board a Bombay local, can you buy your ticket? But can you be in a situation where you don't buy your ticket when you see the TTE coming? So you should prevent that. You know, it shouldn't be that when I see that I am about to be caught, that's the time when I start buying the ticket. You know? So how do you do that? So different mechanisms for that. One mechanism suggested is that you go on the station, and while you are at the station on the platform, you see a series of random numbers on a big screen, and then when you are buying your ticket on your mobile phone, you enter that random number, and that acts as an authentication. And other such things, maybe the tower of the mobile phone is what acts as an authentication device. Another issue that comes up for these sort of service delivery mechanisms is the coverage through the mobile network. In big cities, we take it for granted. Coverage on mobile network, all cities are covered, but not in rural areas. It is not very good. GPRS connectivity particularly is not very good in rural areas. Sometimes bandwidths are very low. So those are issues which may come, financial inclusion, banking, etc. in rural areas also. But we have seen it because on the train we have certain systems that we were trying out, And we realize that while the train is moving, GPRS is a very erratic mechanism for having any significant application running. Lastly, of course, if we have a lot of data about movements and travel, and whenever we book a ticket, we give our names. So our names are theoretically in the database. Right now, the railways doesn't track individual movements. We don't track individual movements. We keep all that data. We don't even analyze it to the extent that we track individual movements. But suppose we do. We have the tools available. Can I track X's movements? Where does that fine line of privacy get crossed? If I track his movements and I give him a freebie, he's happy. But if I track his movement for other purposes, at what stage does he feel that his privacy is being invaded? And again, as was discussed before, what about security concerns? Today we are tracking people and we want to identify people because of frauds while buying tickets. But if we create sufficient capacity, that there is enough capacity, then I don't have to get a person's name. Anyone can go and sit in a train and travel. But with today's security environment, I like to track everybody who's traveling anyway. So that I know who's on my train, who's on this expensive piece of asset, that belongs to the citizens of the country. Do I have criminals there? Do I have a man with a bomb? It all belongs to us, to the public. We don't want people with the potential to damage stuff equipment that we have paid for. But again, so privacy, as Mr. Sani pointed out, privacy comes into everything. All government services that are delivered, innocuous ones such as travel also. And then the last point I wanted to make was targeted services. How much can we target to an individual without losing the overall fairness that we have to provide services to all citizens in a fair manner. It should be an even-handed service delivery. So if you target it too much, are we becoming less even-handed in our approach? Especially for services, these are transportation is a service that we want to let everybody have in equal measure. We don't want to say at the below poverty level people should have a preference in transportation. We don't want the rich people also to have a preference in transportation. We want it to be available to everyone. Whoever wants to avail the service should be able to avail the service. So where do we cross the fine line between fairness and marketing schemes or targeted service delivery here in our case? These are some of the issues that we have to grapple with. And all of them, unfortunately or fortunately, all of them with a very large clientele that we have. We move, as I told you, about 1.5 crore people every day. So there's a lot of data there. And another perspective that I would have shared in my presentation, which I have not done deliberately, is that if we want to create capacity, this is the example of one government department, there are other government departments like this. If we have to create capacity in these departments, and if we want to improve efficiency, then the amount of information that we have to process to make sure that we squeeze the last drop out of whatever we have, the capacities required are huge. Because we are working with, for example, track. We have 60,000 kilometers of track. We have route kilometers. If you count the individual track kilometers, it is about 120,000. It's huge. Each kilometer of track today costs 2 crore rupees. So, number of assets, 8,000 locomotives, more than 2.5 lakh wagons. Each locomotive has 16,000 parts. Each coach has 7,000 parts. We have 55,000 coaches in which people sit. We are short of them. So we have to squeeze the efficiency out of it. If we do that, and if we do that through information and better information systems, we are dealing with a huge amount of data. So information systems in government have to tackle that. Whatever tools are available, they have to be used. With that, I think we are reaching the end of our session here.
Thank you, Mr. Mathur. So let me just quickly recap, today's session. So we had Dr. Rajendra Kumar talk about the framework for identity, and Mr. Rajesh Bansal talked about Aadhaar and using and payment bridge, and using the eKYC as he put it to give an identity. Mr. Rajesh Sani, touched upon the issues about data privacy and introducing mobiles, and the pain infrastructure and how pain can actually elevate something. Gautam talked about micro pension schemes and how, as a practitioner, some of the issues they're facing, how they're trying to solve these challenges. And some of the issues he's raised about somebody needs to cross the road and bridge the gap. I think Abhinav also talked about how business correspondents are helping to further the cause of financial inclusion, and these steps they have taken and some of the challenges they are facing and some of the solutions that they have adopted to overcome these. And Mr. Mathur is, again, a service provider, has looked at some of the issues around, how to manage large amounts of information. Again, he touched upon the issues of privacy and how a lot of the data they collected, how could be used to get more out of the system. So at this point, if I would like to invite a few questions. People have been listening to very patiently. So you can identify yourself.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Bedekar. I'm working in the education sector in rural area. Now, when category of society has been totally excluded here is students. In our colleges, we face a lot of problem for students' attendance in classrooms to admissions, especially if I am working in Maharashtra and somebody wants to get an admission from Bihar to an engineering college in Maharashtra, getting transfer certificate is very difficult. For sports, if I want to send somebody to Delhi for sports, a simple certificate of my principal is not adequate. And there's an identity crisis there. Just I want to ask you, is there a possibility that we can create a student registry after junior college, and there, then that is valid, like your Aadhaar card or KYC or whatever it is. It's very essential because problems of fraud and student identification from exams to admissions is getting serious and serious.
Yeah, on the education side, actually we have a large project coming up, mission mode project for education. In the first 27 projects that were taken up under the National E-Governance plan, education and health were not included. Both of these are coming in now. So as part of that, actually they will plan for each student, actually personalized for a student as the student moves from primary school to middle to secondary school and higher education. I think they'll have mechanisms for this. Right now, I think Aadhaar can be leveraged, but a specific solution is required for this transfer certificates kind of a problem. General authentication mechanisms are there. With Aadhaar, that general authentication mechanism is there. In Andhra Pradesh, there is one authentication mechanism that is used for scholarships, where in the absence of Aadhaar, this is pre-Aadhaar mechanism, where the 10th class roll number and the year of examination, that serves as a unique identifier. So actually from one department to the other, from one college to the other, and also to prevent people from claiming scholarships from 2 or 3 locations, that unique identifier is used today. The system there is called ePass. About 26 lakh students are actually a part of that system. Eventually, what I see is that with Aadhaar database, once the privacy concerns are also taken care of, actually the health department is where database will actually start, because from pregnancy till about 5 years of age, we have a spectrum of services which are expected to be provided to the pregnant women and then to the infants. And then from health, I think it will be a handing over eventually to education sector. So I think it's finally when these two projects are, it'll take time. It'll take maybe about 4 to 5 years for this to actually fructify. But I think those systems are in the making now.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm Dr. C.S. Arora. I work as a senior consultant with the National Mission on Education through ICT and I tell you in state. The question is very relevant and I just wish to inform the campus to Mr. Ajay Swami's remark on that. I just to inform that there are two projects which are already under thought stage. Okay, and in fact there is a request for proposal raised already for one of the issues, one of the projects which is now two projects, one is very advanced stage of development, is the creation of an educational resource planning, ERP, equivalent of what is a business. Okay, so there is the educational resource planning project. It's a very massive project which is going on under the nodal leadership of IIT Kanpur as the institution working. And there are various other institutions like AICMU is one of the institutions supporting that, and Mata Vaishnav Devi University is supporting it, Aligarh Muslim University is supporting it. So which means the ultimate product of that would be some sort of a seamless equivalent of ERP and educational resource planning module in which a student enters a particular institution and right from the registration and admission process to his progress as he goes along from first year to second year, etc., etc., until he comes out. Which means obviously there has to be a unique identifying module for a student. Now, and it is expected that when the prominence coming up as the solution, it is expected that it will be Aadhaar. So that is at a stage of development. The other project, which at this moment there is only a request for a proposal. I happen to be a person who has created that and have been appropriate on computer. Is a project on integration of talent scouting, talent nurturing, and hand holding of the talent to the Shankar portal. Now, broadly, there are various components of that, but one of the major components which answers the concern raised by the participant is in the creation of a student talent portfolio. So, student talent portfolio, right from the time when after his 10+2 education, once he enters a higher education college, and I'm talking of higher education because at this stage, National Mission on Education ICT is under higher education department. So once it enters the higher education institution, and as one progresses, how the academic performance and the skill development is taking place in respect of the person, and how the talent getting developed, and how the the absorbing institutions in the placement market, how they see that particular student as a resource, whether he's more of a manager or whether he's more of a technologist or whether he's more of a microprocessor specialist and all that. So all that will be very clear, and at this stage, what is going on? We are awaiting in fact proposals from the government institutions and expert agencies on that. And yes, definitely, as Mr. Sani has already said, work is going on, and in about 4 or 5 years time, you will definitely see something.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing this. And we'll have one very quick last question before we break for tea.
Hi, my name is Prabhu. I work with Sujin Technologies. One very quick question regarding Aadhaar is on the technical specification, the APIs. So I have gone through the Aadhaar APIs, and they are open APIs. I want to know what's the feedback on building on these APIs. So they've released it to every party. Has any party actually built new services on these APIs? If Abhinav, you plan on using the Aadhaar APIs to build other applications?
Thanks for the question. That's exactly the kind of open APIs we feel that Aadhaar should do more often. Couple of things. One is that we have tested. Aadhaar has not come out very loudly with it, but they have something called a PIN, Aadhaar PIN, and we also work on mobile phones and PIN. So we've managed to integrate with them on the PIN side, and at least have done some testing to get Aadhaar to work with our authentication. So at least there's a small project like that we've tried out. It's not live and it's just testing, and that's the kind of openness that we would want these infrastructures to have more, where they kind of give the APIs and leave it to the rest for the innovators and practitioners to figure out what to do with it.
So since we are running short of time, I'd like to bring this panel discussion to a close. The tea will be served just outside in the lobby. The next session will start here at 11:45. So I request you to please come back. And I'd like to thank all our panelists for being here this morning, for sharing all their views. I'm sorry, Mr. Bansal and Mr. Kumar had to leave because they had other requirements. But please feel, I think other panelists will be here for 10-15 minutes, so please feel free to interact with them directly on any questions or any issues that you have. Thank you so much.